Alright, folks, this is Acid Roots. So I've got a Snoop Dogg album here. Basically, this was an album that came out last year, which is called From the Streets to the Suites. Originally, I was going to purchase this album last year, but then Snoop Dogg didn't release it on CD, so it's a digital only project. So I was going to review this project last year when it was more recent, but I eventually decided to listen to it, and I was pretty almost wholesomely disappointed with it. It really does not have much claim to it, and much like any sort of like valor, doesn't have really any much quality to it or any supposed like just gusto to it. And I think that that's kind of a problem because Snoop Dogg, in a lot of ways is one of the better West Coast artists, but there's a lot of stuff here that I kind of found that is either trying to be like what's the word I'm looking for, derivative, or just otherwise impacts. I mean, this album came out on 420, so that's basically a smoking day, and it was supposed to be a celebration of like cannabis culture, but it does a terrible job of that. It's 10 songs. So, I mean, Snoop Dogg listened to the fact that it was supposed to be a short project and 10 songs, but for the most part, because of that, it was either going to be a weed album and just have a bunch of weed songs on there, or it was just going to be a short project, and he went with that instead. So really, it's misleading that if you think you're going to get this on 420 or something, and then you think it's going to be smoked to the, balls to the wall smoking, because it's not. And kind of the situation about that. The singles are really not that stellar, and there's just a bunch of stuff about this project that just makes it overall a lot lackluster. I'll get to more on that. I kind of wish that there had been a couple more songs on this project, but I don't wish to the degree because it was good. I wish just because there was so much bad on here that it could use something better to kind of bolster it back up, especially for a Snoop Dogg project. So, CEO was a single, and that was actually the intro song. So the intro was a single. Tried to be like this E40 type song, kind of had like the Bay Area type stuff. There's a little bit of Bay Area type vibes on this project, kind of stuff that E40 and like Keek the Sneak and some of those people type do, but it's decent, but I really felt like it could have been better. I think E40 kind of does that better. The beat pretty much is gonna remind folks, I would think, of E40 and that sort of stuff, just those kind of cats. But the way I looked at it, the problem I have with this album is just the lyrics as to how they go. I kind of feel like Snoop Dogg probably could have had more. I feel like the lyrics. Snoop Dogg has certain songs that just have like great vibes on there, but I feel like the streets to the suites is basically a conveyance of how much he's leveled up and trying to get people in that sort of mentality. And there's just a lot of that. Songs like Get Your Bread Up, Fetty in the Bag, some of those type songs, CEO, some of these just really have those kind of vibes as far as like the progress of this showing like a looking back kind of mannerism. The thing about it is just this kind of ruminating is not interesting. It kind of comes off as almost braggadocious, and it's not really. Eminem, at least when he talks about the situations about his past, it's more of in a problematic sort, but I feel like it's not the correct expression that needs to be conveyed in music. I've looked at like I have an article about Tupac up here, and like for example, like the Get Your Bread Up song, and that one I felt like Tupac did it better with songs like what was it? Shoddy Want to Be a Thug, that kind of more mentality as far as those sorts of things kind of happen. I'm trying to think if there's other songs from All Eyes on Me that kind of have that sort of thing. Um, I also feel like a better way of kind of like being encouraging is songs like I Ain't Mad at You, that type stuff. But I would just have to say, like, the problem I'm having with this project is this the severe lack of kind of like interesting, kind of emphatic topics. Like, we get the fact that Snoop Dogg has money, but I think the interesting conveyance about it. Part of being an interesting musician is being able to convey this sort of income in a way that makes it fun. And really, the Dropping album on 420, both of these songs that are for smoking, which I'm going to get to, Roaches in My Ashtray and then Left My Weed, do not really come off as weed songs. They're just more of weed that I have weed songs. It's not really like one that you would spark one up to and smoke a couple ounces, something like that. Roaches in My Ashtray really felt like a song on the go where he's more mad about folks that are stealing his weed more so than actually enjoying the sport of smoking. So it's kind of, I mean, I know that Snoop Dogg smokes a lot, but it's disappointing that someone that smokes as much as he does has such kind of paltry smoking songs. And Left My Weed is just another one, just basically talking about, yeah, I'm going places, but I forgot my weed, or I left my weed in the first place and I have to go back and get it, that kind of vibe. So it's just like, I've seen better smoking songs, I've seen better smoking songs. Would Bob Marley make a song like that? I don't know. You just have to look at some of these things. It's just it's a little bit of a disappointment. I think if I had messed with this project on 420, it probably would have, it's questionable as to how that would have went. So it's really not Smoker's choice. I mean, the hook on Roaches in My Ashtray is pretty good, but that's really about, I mean, it comes out, it does have like California bounce. It definitely has like a club type vibe to it, but I just feel like it's just the wrong topic. I mean, it's an important topic just because it's something that does happen in the weed culture, but I still feel like there probably should have been a more interesting record that could have happened. This record was just too short to drop on 420 and not have more songs like that. And then Say It With Your Booty tries to be like a Yin Yang Twins kind of saucy number, but it's just, it has like a similar beat. Kind of reminded me of the Whisper song by Yin Yang Twins and some of the other ones that they've done. I know that, like, the Yin Yang Twins were pretty good at doing songs like that in terms of just kind of having, typically Snoop Dogg can do songs for ladies, like when he does stuff with like Pharrell and some of those cats and R&B folks and stuff, R. Kelly and some of them. But this was just a pretty terrible one. I mean, I really could not get into the production at all, and that really off-put me from even wanting to listen to the song. It was messier than most Snoop Dogg songs are. I felt like the trimming could have been that much better, and it was more of a mess than it probably should have been. And all right, now to talk about the rest of the project, there's just a bunch of situations. Like, I feel like there's how many better kinds of templates for how some of this goes, and I was really surprised at the way that this project was put together. There was not enough emphasis in being interesting. Like, Fetty in the Bag is just like a Jack Move type song. He's back with the East Siders, but they've done better songs in the past. I was just basically talking about wanting to pull a move, something like that. Sitting on Blades is, UGK has done better versions of just talking about how their whip, how better their whip is and that type stuff. Gang Signs was, just, back on some of the 90s Snoop vibes. I already talked about CEO. Say What Your Booty was bad. Song for the Ladies was not, he could have done better, had like Chris Brown on there, R. Kelly, something like that, an old R. Kelly song. Look Around was kind of, I mean, Snoop Dogg kind of got some of his edge back, but he did that more often. But these songs, I don't know. I mean, there's like me expecting a song like Murder Was the Case, or just an overall kind of more triumphant song like Who Am I, or something like that, or Drop It Like It's Hot, even just those type songs. I mean, you don't really find something like that on this project. I mean, really, I feel like the only song that really gives this album any weight whatsoever is just Roaches in My Ashtray. Like I said, the topics are uninteresting, the lyrics are uninteresting, it comes off as braggadocious, but it doesn't have the bite to back up the bark. And the guests don't really help, minus Devin the Dude. Devin the Dude had one of the best, most interesting verses on this whole album, just with what he was talking about in Left My Weed. But there's nothing like him or nothing like that verse for the rest of the album. And it's really kind of abysmal, because as good of friends as Snoop Dogg is with Eminem and Tupac and Nate Dogg and some of those people, there's just not much that kind of is of value on this project. And I don't know. I mean, that's kind of, I mean, I listened to it, but in so many ways, I mean, I was pissed off for one thing because I couldn't get the album on the CD. And then it turns around and it's not even worth it because the more you listen to it, it just doesn't have like the correct formats. It's not talking about things it needs to talk about. When it does talk about things, it's not talking about it in an interesting way. So I just feel like, I don't know. I mean, I've the Snoop Dogg albums I've listened to in recent times, like No Limit, Top Dog, and the last meal and some of those records that I listen to more regularly by Snoop Dogg. I feel like some of the things he says, just like in Just Dippin' with Dr. Dre and that song he did with Sticky Fingers and records like those, you know, with Dr. Dre beats and some of those type things. But it just felt like a lot of just kind of on autopilot and in a bad way. I mean, this autopilot was obviously rather uninteresting and did not. This autopilot, like I said, it had more bark than bite. And I know for the most part, you know, Snoop Dogg or fans of Snoop Dogg could look at this and say, well, he's rich, so who cares? But the prognosis behind it is just kind of talking about that this is, you know, tarnishing his legacy. Because really, I mean, you look at it, what classics does Snoop Dogg have to his discography minus Doggy Style? And that's kind of the situation. Like RNG was decent. There's things I like on the last meal. No Limit Top Dog is solid in some cases. I like some of the Dr. Dre beats. Blue Carpet Treatment's okay, better than average, but in terms of like an 8, 9, or 10 out of 10 project, it's just very few and far between. Ego Trippin' was not that good. Malice in Wonderland was kind of a mixed bag. So, I mean, that's just kind of the concept behind it, is trying to say that this autopilot stuff and just overall the complete thing is just a lack of interesting kind of distinction in the lyrics. And that's the thing, is I felt like Snoop Dogg was more compelling than that, and it's kind of disappointing. It's kind of disappointing after not checking in with him for a few years that that's the case, because it's like, hey, you know, with more albums like this, I may not check for Snoop Dogg anymore. So this is kind of thing. So I'm gonna give this album. I'm gonna give this album a 2 out of 10, basically, and I don't even know if I should give it that. The songs I recommend to you would just be Roaches in My Ashtray and then Left My Weed with Devin the Dude and Jay Black. So the smoking songs are the best moments on this project, but for the most part, it's just a severe lack of like anything tangible. And the social score, I'll just give a 3 out of 10 because he did release 3 singles, but I don't know if there were music videos for them, and only one of those 3 songs did I like. So it's not Snoop Dogg back on his edge. You can't even go out and buy the CD. And it felt like kind of just like a sleepwalking record. And it's like, you know, I've heard Snoop Dogg on countless good songs to where I know he can do better than that. And I don't know where like this the severe lack of just compellingness was with Snoop Dogg this time. I mean, really, it just feels more braggadocious. If you're wondering, well, the lyrics don't sound that bad. Well, it's like, here's the situation. It doesn't. It's very braggadocious, and it kind of has like the vibes behind it as far as well, it's not as much braggadocious as much as it is fishing for like compliments, kind of fishing for like, hey, I just want to throw this out here that this is how I'm doing and that sort of stuff. Like, yeah, I've really, you know, I've gone through all this and I've leveled up so much, and it's crazy how much I've leveled up and all that sort of thing. I mean, you could say it's reflecting, but it kind of does it in like a conceited way, and that's kind of the atmosphere that I kind of get from it. But I don't know. I mean, I look at some of these things like it really has to deal with like that, and then the concept of like the lack of interesting topics that there actually are, because you would think that really it just feels like Snoop Dogg is simply about like still maintaining his gang ties, having a decent car, and you know, macking on some females besides that. And there's just, yeah, I look at some of these Tupac records, there was just more to say, and it's kind of interesting that the weed songs had more to say in them, but the rest of the album was just kind of paltry and generic. That's kind of the situation there. So that's what you have to deal with. But yeah, I mean, I would simply have to say that I don't know. I mean, like, I've talked with Jackal Goldkick and stuff, and we've had this problem with Eminem records, but now I'm starting to wonder about Snoop Dogg. I said this a few months ago about Dr. Dre, how he's starting to kind of lose his edge, but I would like to hope that Snoop Dogg isn't, just because he has a more frequent update ratio, but I really would not want to hear more records like this because, yeah, I want Snoop Dogg to make more records like Doggy Style, The Blue Carpet Treatment, and The Last Meal, but I don't know.